Hi, I'm Aaron Octavio MondXKii, the downfallen cousin of Isidora MondXKii II, whose life and work this brief lecture will attempt to clarify and aggrandize. Isidora and I were born during the last days of a terrible empire, which conducted the affairs of many towering cities on the moon, as well as some outlying districts and villages among the near stars. Despite the claims of our finest scribes and the modest record of so-called reforms inaugurated by this empire, it is unlikely that history will be kind to this era in the future. Many elders of our family were among the chief attendants and chroniclers of the monarch, and they occupied a precarious position of privilege, refinement, and, depending on the individual in question, either spiritual compromise or long, nefarious sentences in the far craters. We were both thus raised in celestial luxury, while also receiving a classical education, which I myself am said to have squandered. And we were groomed from an early age to enter the coming circle of scribes, intended to document subsequent generations. Isidora was a stiff and serious child, and she absorbed the secretive, elite alphabet of the court language with great interest and relative ease. It's worth noting that her poems are the single surviving body of work which employed this language in a private way. Her extreme subjectivity and the dramatic perversion with which she maneuvered such bureaucratic symbols and lines is basically famous. Anyway, the golden days of our youth were short-lived, and our empire soon faced a series of punishments from above and beyond. For years, there had been a common practice of adorning and enlarging the meteors which hung in the distance of our sky. The favorite artists of the monarch would climb strong ladders and attach additional shapes and ornaments to these huge stones. They would grow them enormously and then carve them up into a variety of special likenesses. An owl, for example. It was not thought that these meteors would ever leave the orbit our educated magicians had placed them within. The fall of one very beautiful meteor into the midst of our capital city caused untold destruction and compromised the infrastructure of our society to such an extent that we were soon controlled by other distant cities and their governors. During this occupation, the circle of scribes was disbanded, and Isidora and I had to chart out for ourselves new paths toward the future. I myself became a well-known amateur fighter, fairly unsuccessful but famous for his vitriolic and hateful performances. But when my body couldn't take the work anymore, I was left with nothing, as my managers had pocketed all the loose change. So I became an itinerant thief, and also, although rarely, a bounty hunter for the armies and police of the occupation. Isidora learned quickly the languages and codes of the occupying governments, and she lived meagerly as a low-level clerk in the outskirts of the capital city we had both known as children. It was during this time that she composed the bulk of the verse which she wrote in that forgotten language of our fallen empire. Before continuing, I'll make a brief note on this language and its calligraphic tradition. Although I'm not an academic by any means, I'm a boxer by trade. Court language was written as script. It used a combination of words which referred to standardized speech sounds, and also recurring images, many of them birds, which represent ideas and emotions, almost like in a hieroglyph. Also, many of these writings were thus very ornate and filled with pictures, so much so that you may even confuse them with some of the photographs I will tonight be presenting. So this is a picture of the original building we lived in during childhood. You could see that in those days, the weather was such that fires and chimneys were not needed, and many residences used their chimneys for flower pots, and also even for the cultivation of larger trees. We lived in the house in the upper right-hand corner, which sits atop one of these trees. These are some more buildings from the neighborhood. This is one of our friends jumping rope inside of their house. And these are some locals. This is the first poem that I'll be showing tonight. And this poem has an interesting motif. Birds and other creatures holding things that are not balloons and acting as if they are balloons. They seem to be drifting up through the sky on account of their fake balloons. While near the top of this page, a couple other birds are carrying some clouds in the hopes of using them as a hammock for some of their friends who are even higher up on the page. But everyone knows that a cloud can't catch you at all. What a disaster is in store for the trusting friends of these kind souls. The bird with a star-capped house on its head, and the bird with a hat. The fake balloon is a complicated symbol. It can represent illusion, false hopes, but it can also indicate transformation. In this case, we have no such luck, and this is actually a pretty sad poem. It is called The House I Left, or On 4 Feet. It consists entirely of symbols and is a very vague, suggestive poem, which I will not translate. Another fake balloon, but this time it's a pretty nice heart, transforming this bird into a sea creature, able to survive in the depths of strange lettering and crazy waves which surround him. This poem refers to Isidora's mad flight to the outskirts and her luck in finding employment there during the new regime. It is called We Didn't Take a Boat. This is a poem about flowers. It's called Two Daffodils. This used to be in fashion for a while when we were children. It's a bouquet of birds, and this guy is wearing them. This is a picture of a meteor, which basically ended our civilization. So this is a pretty short poem about the apartment corridor Isidora MondXKii ended up living in for a very long time. And it's so short, I'll translate it, but you know, it's not a very good translation. So it's something like this. The narrow halls of the place just go around and up into rooms which have too many windows for seeing all those roads. The roads have eyeballs and enjoy staring at trees and at you too. And even I have my own eyeballs, which I don't want to look at roads with. Not anymore, oh dear. So this poem is called The Birthday Party in a Chimney. Whose birthday do you think it is? This one is about smoking in the bathtub and having shocking revelations. While doing so, Isidora wrote this after considering a move to another bureau in a different corner of the city. She decided not to, though, after she had the revelation that inspired this quick and eventful lyric. So it's another one that's all in symbols. The bird all the way down in the lower right-hand corner is hiding who he really is from his compatriots. One bird has the tallest hat in the history of hats, and an angel from heaven is trying to become like these birds. She is dying to wear a crazy hat and carry around little branches, thorns. So basically, a poem about longing and unfulfilled ambitions, it would seem. This one is entitled, I Lost My Dress in the Snow. And this is an original manuscript from when MondXKii was drafting her first collection. You can see the imagery is less intense than it often is, and then it will soon become even more intense. Another poem only in symbols. A few things going on here. The sad bird is trying to kill himself by drinking from a working chimney. A spider with half its legs is attacking the smallest sun in the sky. And other birds are feasting on berries. This is just a close-up view of some of the writing. This is kind of a humorous, like ballad type deal. It's about a walking treehouse with enemies inside of it. And here we can see a nice minimal form comparable to the haiku, but totally different. This is an example of a certain mode which MondXKii practiced sparingly. It's about two birds, and they disagree with each other about what color the stars are. This is just a blank page. Okay, it's called Dancing Around the Cloud Staircases. It's a very confusing one for me. This is a pretty pessimistic poem about the violence of people, and it's called Screaming Alive. This is just a photograph of an anniversary party Isidora once attended. Seems like everyone's pretty happy. Chess with houses. This was a common practice on the moon, both before and after the occupation. To this day, many people have no idea where they will live tomorrow. Similarly, this is a song about the agony of the houses as they swirl in and out of the various vortexes that contain them, and a few birds are applauding something else entirely. This is the constellations telling themselves rumors about the various cities on the moon and other planets. This is called the moving tree. Different from the chessboard houses, this tree holds within it a hotel hell-bent on embracing the chaos of the times. Reckless occupants stay here for free, and they go to hell and back. Isidora stayed in this hotel for some time, like about a couple of years, I think. And this poem is a fairly autobiographical work. These are the famous short poems Isidora wrote about carrying a branch of thorns through downtown. This one is entitled Trading Breath Underwater, or The Lung-Sharing Birds. This is called My Gut and the Five Ghosts in the Bathtub. Yet another song about bathtubs. So this is just a close-up of where she lived in the outskirts on a day with a very burning sun. This is called A Mountain Boat Needs Ladders. This is an animal carrying a broken car through the city. So basically there's a sleepy and sad town where it is forever carnival time. And all the little houses were built so as to have strange rides and other amusements within them. Even in the heart of the night, you can hear their gears creaking, or like their tiny chairs and other parts shaking in the wind. Isidora was in love once, before she ultimately parted ways with anything of the sort. In this she was not alone, and she plotted with her boy to escape the bustling city of our origins. The enthusiasm of youth showed them the way to the correct sidewalks and little bridges to cross and follow in order to arrive at the town of Dinseroige 3.8, which was then located in a barren but not too distant mountain range called the Burning East Towers. Isidora and the young man completed their ascent to the town of carnivals by finding a very large ladder hidden beneath a heavy moon cloud. They jumped heroically from this ladder over a small canyon and continued up another small staircase, and then through and past the gates of the town. Here they took up lodgings in an empty house with a few rides. They were surprised by the exhaustion and pessimism of all the hiding lovers and addicts they encountered while whistling together and bobbing apples up there in those cold peaks. Their house had 3 doors, which led the way to its 3 amusements: a ride called the Caterpillar, a smaller Ferris wheel modeled after the sun of our galaxy, and a faster spinning ride which replicated the sensation a baby bird experiences when being thrust back out of its mother's mouth. They rode these rides together, and they gave each other a long, real kiss. The other houses in town were similarly and wildly equipped with slides and roller coasters, special trapdoors and mazes. They spent long nights playing cards in their house, which did not have a chimney. And I just put this in because the whole lecture, or whatever it is, has been about my cousin, and this is actually a photograph of one of my old enemies. I beat him in a match, but I used underhanded tricks, and he became so angry that his foot turned into a tornado while he was pointing at me and my celebratory band of cronies. This is the swing set in the park in the province of our origins. This is the dress bigger than the mountains. I'm really not sure where I found this. And this was a pretty big deal back in the day. This is the world's oldest imaginary airplane. Despite the moral ambiguities of her life, she killed a bear once, but she was befriended by many mosquitoes. Isidora strove to write some pretty edifying verse. This image is a vision of her daydream while she was writing the poem that would become Across the Desert and Between the Two Famous Cities of Blindness. It is a poem concerning 2 cities run by governors who dreamed of themselves and also of architecture. One governor commanded his city to be consolidated into the various parts of a mammoth castle which resembled himself. The other governor loved birds more than life itself. She ordered the completion of a sky-high birdhouse, which hovered over everything like the Tower of Babel. All the birds emptied out of the city, and only she had the key to the lock of the door which opened into that aviary seated atop the world's largest and most forbidding staircase. The citizens became depressed, and they pounded their fists against the lowest stairs of the massive structure while going about their day. And in the other city, in the castle, a falling star once fell through the tallest window, which was shaped like the governor's eye. This began a fire which brought down doomsday itself. And these two cities were separated by a big, wide desert. This is called the Citizens of the Deep Sleep. This is just a photograph of people singing on a train. And yeah, again, I'm really not sure how this got into the mix. Yep. Okay, so just gonna check and see if there's any questions. And yeah, it doesn't look like there's any questions. So that's it. Bye.